Hey folks, welcome. Sam Green here. In this video, I'm going to do a 20 mark painting, which is kind of a tough, maybe at times frustrating prompt, but I think it's a prompt that holds a lot of value and can teach you a lot about actually about slowing down. You'd think 20 marks would go really, really quickly, but I think in this video, which is about 20 minutes long, you'll see me really kind of think and take care in each mark. So let's dive right into it. Here is my image here that I am planning on working from. Obviously, this image is not a great photo. I think I even took it while driving, which I do not recommend. But let me go through a few things about this photo that I think are going to be really useful before I dive into this 20 mark painting. So first and foremost, let's just crop and resize it. The crop I don't put to the exact measurements always of what my painting surface is gonna be. I think I just want to get some of the extraneous stuff out of the way so it's not too distracting. So I'm going to crop it about there. Now you can see a little better of what I have in mind. And when you're thinking about a 20 mark painting, you've got to simplify, which is maybe the most obvious of things with something like this. But what I like in this is let me redo that. So that's a pencil and not a brush. So I like that right there. I like that sort of sense of light. I like these little trees here. I think those are great. I think this moment here is really important where the porch comes out in front of that lighthouse, showing us that this dark is in front of that lighthouse. It's a great way to show space in just a really kind of quick and short amount of time. Really just showing this little thing come in front right here. And that there's light on this side and there's that little light peeking through. It's just an awesome way to show space. So I like that moment. I think that's really important. I also like just this is a pretty typical kind of crescendo of space. Sort of the houses all go back in space. All the perspective is just kind of leading you back here. So it works pretty well for that. As well. So there's a couple things right out of the gate that I know I'm going to use to show space. One is this moment, and the other is just the perspective moments here too. And so I go into this without an exact plan. I'm just sort of speaking as to what is the most exciting thing about this image to me, and what I can play with. I may play with this pole here in front of this light, but I suspect in 20 marks I probably won't have time to get there. There's all this here really that is, if you just look at all this sort of tree mark stuff, this is the kind of stuff that I'm going to have to really oversimplify and really not worry about too much in a 20 mark painting. There's a lot of detail there. So really I want to focus on some of the big shapes that I like right in here. This sense of dark here, and there's all this dark here. So there's some great contrast in this photo. So without further ado, let's dive right into this. I think the first thing to note here is to take your time mixing colors. Just because it's a 20 mark painting does not mean we rush through these 20 marks. I think we want to kind of go slow and think about how to value each 20 marks, each of the 20 marks. Make the marks mean something, rather than just kind of hammer through them as quick as we can and hope the painting turns out well. But instead, consider the importance, I think, of each one. As you'll see me do here, it doesn't mean everything is slow and everything is methodical. So here's my first big mark here that I'm just kind of flopping on there as a big fat brush. And I'm just kind of scrubbing it into the Arches oil paper there. And boom, there you go. First mark. That's the dark on the right-hand side, like I was talking about in the beginning. And then I knew that I wanted to have a dark street. And so I diluted the paint a lot with some Gamsol and had that sort of sharp line going across. And we're 2 marks in already. So 18 to go. And I say 20 marks not as not because it's so strict, but because I really want you to have a guideline. There was 2 more there. That was with a rag, and I think I just dipped my rag in turpentine to kind of bleed the colors out and over into the Arches oil paper. And as you'll see here, I'm taking my time. And because I only have 20 marks, I know I want a variety of marks. That's 5 there. So 5 marks. I really wanted to lay in that sky really powerfully. I feel like it's an important shape in the painting. It's one of the biggest shapes in the painting. And so I'll go back into it for sure, but I want to get as far as I can in as few marks as I can. So like I said, I'm 5 marks in. I only have 15 marks left in this painting. Full disclosure, we'll see if I actually hit 20 on the nose. It may be a little over or a little under. And I would encourage you to follow along with that same attitude. I really don't think it's essential to hit the 20. 20 is not a magic number. It's just a low number. And what you can't see off screen here is that I'm mixing paint right now. I'm taking my time. I'm thinking about what needs to happen with this image. And so as you can see in that image there, to remind you just of these simple shapes, I've got the image in the corner there just for you to take a peek at it. Take a look at what I'm looking at while I'm working on this painting. I knew pretty immediately when I put that blue mark down that it was too clean. It was too small. I wanted it to be sort of twice the size. So it's got a lot of paint kind of resting on the surface of the paper there, without really kind of taking up as much square footage as I was hoping for. I was really hoping for a little bit more. And so you'll see me here in a few seconds adjust that because I really wanted to hit that sky importantly. So I'm taking off all of that extra paint there, and I'm just kind of extending the boundaries of that mark a little bit. Because I felt like it was too clean of a line and too much of a clear shape when I knew that I was going to I wanted to cut into parts of it. And here you see this is the rooftop here. So we're at I believe we're at 7 marks if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, with that 13 marks to go. And I'm concerned about this, right? I'm concerned as anybody would be, with such a limited amount of marks that are sort of allowed to be made. Giving myself this restriction. So that was 3. So that was what are we at? 10 marks now, roughly. So we're probably gonna go a little bit over the 20 mark limit, but that's okay, and that's okay for anyone who's doing this to do as well. One of the things that I'm hoping to get through all this is a variety of mark. I I think that's really, really important, is to have a different type of mark. So Arches oil paper is a great way to do that, because you can dilute your paint a lot and you get kind of like almost like a watercolor effect to it, where the paint really thins out and kind of stains nicely into the paper. And you can see here that at this stage, there's some things here that I'm okay with. I'm kind of liking. I think I'm certainly have lost count at this point, but I think I'm about 12 marks in, and I can sort of feel myself rounding the bend on what I need to do, if you can believe it. And again, I think it's important to note that, sorry to be a broken record here, but 20 marks does not mean just put down 20 marks as quickly as you can. That means that you only get 20 marks, so you have to make them count. You don't have any room in this prompt to do anything extra. You can't waste a mark. You have to really make each one count. And so that's, I'm not so much counting in my head as I'm working, because I think that's distracting and not so helpful. But what I am doing is I'm constantly looking back to that image to see what's most important. So as you can see here, I've pretty much decided to eliminate the cars. That's not really a detail that I find important to this image. I sort of see them all in shadow, and it's not really a important part of this to me. I'm laying in those big shapes, that light of the house. Right now I'm just using that as the white of the paper. I will put paint on there, but I'm just sort of using that to see what's most important. And I have that house all the way on the right. That's that dark green shape. And then I have a little bit of those. We talked about that crescendo of roofs on the as you go back in space. This mark here that's really just about kind of laying in that tree there, in the sense that I want something for the eye to sort of bounce off of on the edge of the canvas, so that we're not just sort of we're not sort of sent off into the left-hand side, off into the abyss. There's that brown sort of tree there that I think is a nice color touch for a painting that's relatively very cool. So I thought it was important to have a little bit of that brown color in there, as well as a smaller mark. So I think this will make us at, we're about 14 marks here, give or take. You could see that I almost scraped away that gray mark that I made in the sky. I hesitated a bit, and my reason for that is it was a little bit of the same problem as that first sky mark, but I left it because I was trying to not to overthink it, to just lay it in and move on, and continue to cover the surface and make my marks here. So I'm about 15. I should have about 5 marks left. Like I said, I suspect I'll go a little bit over, but I can sort of see, with each passing one that it's coming along. I'm sort of trusting myself here, and that's not, when I say it's coming along, that's not me saying, oh, look at this fantastic painting. This is sort of me saying that, I trust that if I sort of stay on this process here, that I'll get to where I want to go. That's just sort of a straight white mark there. Again, I think that house, I think it's a little bit of a dirty white. There's 2 marks, and you can sort of see that sort of dip on the, it's not dip, but the reveal of the porch there that I had talked about. That moment is, specific, but not overly precise. It's just specific in that it shows that one thing is in front of the other thing. So I think there's a specificity there that's really important, but not a, I'm not sort of getting real close to it with a really tiny brush and kind of painting it perfectly. I'm really just showing that this color is in front of that color. And when it creates that space, that helps the eye move around and sort of build the scene in a really interesting way. And so I think this next decision, or maybe these next couple decisions, are really important, and I think one that I want to illustrate verbally, which is that just because you make 20 marks doesn't mean that they're all going to be exactly right. No matter how much thought and effort you put into them, you can make the wrong you can make the wrong mark. And how do you correct that? And is it don't just stick with it because you only get 20. So I'm specifically talking about that gray that I put in the sky there, which it's kind of a gray purple, which I feel like after looking at it and sort of letting it rest there, that really wasn't really, the whole sky wasn't activated in a way that I wanted it to be. I wanted that sort of activity to sort of feel like the same light, that sort of harsh light that was falling onto that house, and it felt disconnected for me, and so I knew I had to correct that. And part of the issue with that is that I had to use one of my marks here to just kind of get rid of it. And as you can see, I got rid of it and maybe scrubbed a little bit there at the end to maybe drag some of the gray down to use that. But I think, gosh, at this point, I think I've got maybe 2 or 3 marks left. And that's because one of them was spent discarding a mark. And so, yes, all the marks are important. You got to make them count. But, don't take that as that they're all going to be perfect. So I really had to fix my sky there. And so I'm coming in. You can't see as much with my shoulder there, but with that sort of a lighter, kind of more green-blue, to really kind of try and show some distance that's happening in the sky. Which I think is important to sort of show that distance, that as it gets closer to the horizon, the sky changes color. And I was happy I did that because I think I found one is a new mark, a new language, which I think is important for an interesting painting. But also, I think the color was a little bit more what I wanted to show. That gray color kind of deadened it a little bit. So I knew I liked that color, so I wanted to bring that in on the left-hand side, and to try and show a few of those tree shapes in there. Nothing too specific, but again, trying to find a little bit of a variety of marks still. So I'm using still a big brush because I'm trying to cover some surface area, but nothing too crazy. As you can see there, that I made those 2 marks that are sort of identical in shape, which is anything but what a tree is, and just using the palette knife there to sort of scrape those out to just eliminate that sort of repetition that is really not a good way to depict a tree, especially a tree without any leaves on it. And at this point, I think I've hit about 20, so I'm kind of rounding the bend here. Adding a couple lines here and there. I'm going to cover in that white space all the way on the left-hand side, which I think is important. I put a couple little light marks in the road there. Nothing crazy detail, but again, some smaller details. Yeah, so I think we're at about 23 marks right now. And then lastly, there were these little bushes in front of this house, and I wanted to show that in just one mark and not just have that be a perfect rectangle. And I used that mark to kind of mush around and show a little bit of a perspective line there as well that the street scene was doing as well. I mean, excuse me, that the lights were doing on the left-hand side. So you'll have to forgive me for breaking the 20 mark rule, and maybe added a few more at the end, 23, 24 marks-ish. I think that that's okay, because it's, the point is to limit your marks but care about your marks, which I was actively trying to do the whole time. And this is just a video for you to see how I react to a prompt in that manner. So here's the finished product, and I'm feeling pretty happy with it all in all. And I think probably what's best is that 20 marks makes me walk away now, and it makes me just kind of say this is done, regardless of how successful or what parts of it may still need work. I get to sort of walk away, and I can sort of assess how much I like it later on. But for now and for today, it's done. So thanks so much. This is Sam Allerton Green, and I appreciate you watching.